Ticker Ed, in association with Enquiry Tracker, empowering schools to manage and grow inquiries and online enrolments.
Hello and welcome back to Ticker Ed, where we will be unpacking all things education from K to 12 right through to university. And of course, whilst Enquiry Tracker, the Inquiry to Enrolment software solution, is the presenting sponsor of the program, the opinions expressed in the following show are of course our own. And joining me now is my regular co-host and co-founder of Enquiry Tracker, Greg Campitelli. And today's topic, it's one I'm really intrigued by: emotional intelligence and how critical it is for schools, teachers, their students and the parents to really grasp its importance. Greg, you're here to help me. What is emotional intelligence? Take us through.
I like your opening comment. It's a term that's frequently used, but perhaps not that well understood.
Well,
you know, perhaps we're really familiar with intelligence quotient, or IQ, which is probably a little bit more widely understood, but even that is debatable. But that's not today's program. Let's talk about where the terms first started being used. It was coined in the mid-1990s by a chap called Daniel Goleman, who started to really sort of put some language around what this thing is. Maybe let's start with what it's not.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence is not a measure of how agreeable you are, or how nice you are, or how optimistic you are. I'm going to quote from our special guest today, who'll join us in a few minutes.
Great.
Emotional intelligence can be defined as every single human behaviour and emotional reaction that drives the events and the outcomes of what is happening around us. So it's human, and it's emotion, and it's behaviour that's driving what's going on. In terms of the everyday vernacular, you might say, well, what are the things that make us tick? You know, what are things that is causing a reaction, either positive or bad, and how do we react to that in the high pressure environment of a school or university or the workplace? Can be a measure. How we react in those situations can be a measure of how emotionally intelligent we are. And in terms of research, and again, I'll quote our special guest here, the Carnegie Institute of Technology in the United States of America actually states that up to 85% of our success in our working careers is due to the skills in human engineering rather than the technical skills we might have learnt. So how we are adapting in the workplace, like I have this view for most jobs, not all, I'm not being silly, you can teach most people most things, but you can't teach attitude. So our workplace at Enquiry Tracker, we say attitude over experience every day of the week. And the other mantra we have is let's employ problem solvers rather than the hurdle builders.
What are the characteristics, I guess, of an emotionally intelligent person, if we're to sort of sizzle it down?
All right, now we're going to have a test here. So again, I'm quoting our special guest here. I'm going to read from a card.
I haven't studied for this.
You haven't studied for this?
No.
I'm going to assess on whether you, Mike Loader, are an emotionally intelligent person. I want you to give on 8 metrics, 8 questions.
Yep.
Perfect score is 40. 5 for each question. 5 is good. 3, 1, I'm no good. I'm no good at this. Now, no one's 5 all the time.
Okay.
But here we go.
I'm bringing up my system here.
Question number 1. And folks, please join in at home. Rate yourself right now. Emotionally intelligent people, they listen and they learn from criticism. Out of 5, please, Michael.
Oh, okay. Yep. Next one.
Next one. 2, they maintain a positive, can-do, solution mode attitude in difficult situations.
Yeah, okay. Next one.
Got it? Here we go. We could be in trouble here. They manage anxiety, fear, anger, and all emotions appropriately in all situations.
Next.
That was quick.
I knew that one.
Number 4, they recognise how their behaviour affects others. Okay, we're at the halfway point. You've got your ratings. Good man. Number 5, they are empathic. You've got that, not sympathy.
No.
Yeah, it's a deeper understanding. And question number 6, they have discipline and are self-motivated.
Okay, yep.
Okay, 2 more to go. They listen even if they disagree. Are you a good listener when you're not agreeing with what your partner or your work colleague has just said? And finally, they look for ways to improve when things don't go to plan.
Okay.
Out of 5, please, Mr. Loader. And can you give me a score? Out of 40.
That is a solid 27.
That's a solid.
I'm proud of that 27.
I think we should get our special guest in.
Perfect time to bring our guest in to save us from all of this nonsense. But joining us from Perth, Western Australia is Amy Jacobson, who is one of Australia's leading experts specialising in emotional intelligence and is the author of the book, Emotional Intelligence. This is fascinating stuff. Firstly, Amy, how did I go?
I think you did great. 27, what a great starting point. I'm going to use starting point as there's a lot of opportunity to grow there as well.
Oh, that's such an optimistic outlook. Thank you so much. But from an educational perspective, Amy, why is it so important for schools to be increasingly aware of emotional intelligence? What have you seen?
Yeah, look, emotional intelligence comes down to people interacting. So whenever there are human beings involved, emotional intelligence is going to play a very vital role in the outcome of those situations. Now, we know that schools are filled with people, students, teachers, parents, whatever it is, but it is a highly interactive area for human beings. So therefore, we have to get the balance right between the IQ and the EQ. But I think what's really interesting here is that schools have changed a lot, and they continue to change along with the world, right? And we know that for kids at the moment, some of the things they're studying and learning in school may not even be that relevant by the time they leave school, because the workplace and career industries are changing so rapidly. And the advantage that emotional intelligence can bring into this is that if we start to really understand, or get the children to understand, what makes them tick and build those core emotional intelligence skills, that means that they'll be able to adapt to a very quick changing workforce and also job titles as well. So I think we can build our children more by building those base skills rather than just their IQ, so that they can adapt to the changing environment and world that we're going through.
Amy, share with us some practical tips that teachers can use in the classroom to make themselves and their students a little bit more emotionally aware.
Yeah. Look, I would compare teachers to great leaders. I think the teachers play a huge role in all of our lives and in our children's lives. And when I look at a great leader has the ability to be able to adapt their style to the person that's in front of them and to the situation. So my greatest tip for teachers is to really be able to adapt your teaching style, your communication style, your engagement style to the child that's in front of you and to the situation. So when we start to look at classrooms, similar to the workplace, similar to everything that we do, when you have a group of people, like whether it's 30 students or however many in the classroom in front of you, they're all going to have different learning modalities. And what I mean by that is, some of them are going to be highly digital people where they're going to need to know the detail and the research, and they're going to crave knowing or having all of their questions answered, where some kids are going to get very bored when you go through that much detail. So I think, if we can build our own emotional intelligence so that we can understand what makes the people in front of us tick as fast as possible, then we can actually tailor our teaching and our learning to as many people as we can. And this becomes really important in a classroom, and we see it quite often, how some kids really thrive with certain teachers, where others may actually find that they learn better from a different style of teaching. So for teachers, really adapt your style. And also, I know you mentioned at the beginning of the program, bringing empathy in makes a massive difference. And empathy in a classroom means that we remove the judgment about how the child is actually feeling. We don't really have a right to decide whether they should be overwhelmed, whether they should think that this is tough, whether they should like this subject or not like this subject. Empathy is really understanding, how is that child feeling right now, and what is the best thing I can possibly say or do compared to what is the worst thing that I can possibly do to get the best outcome for the student and for the teacher.
Well said by you, Amy. Just aware of the time, but how can we increase our emotional intelligence? Help me out with that 27.
Yeah, so emotional intelligence. Look, some people are naturally born with a skill set that aligns to emotional intelligence really easy, and there is a bit of a misconception that we can't teach ourselves emotional intelligence, but you absolutely can. I would say, like, to really work on that 27, the first thing, you've got to become really aware, and once you become aware of kind of like your gaps in your emotional intelligence, it's really starting to dig a little bit deeper and understand what it is that makes you tick and being committed. Yes, you can build your emotional intelligence. Is it easy? No, it's not. But is it possible? Absolutely it is. So there are so many amazing tools out there at the moment, quite a few different good books out there. One that I hear is a good recommendation, but, I don't know. But I think, if you're feeling like you're getting stuck building that emotional intelligence, get some help. There's plenty out there.
Fantastic. And just very quickly, please, Amy, talk to us about a couple of quick tips to deal with conflict situations, having those difficult conversations with colleagues, staff, students and parents. Tell us a bit about that.
Communication is so important, and I think you made reference earlier on, Greg, about the ear and the mouth ratio. Great communication comes from asking great questions, and naturally when we go into tough situations, our mind goes into a defense mechanism, and unfortunately at times like that we start to tell people what to do and we tell people what they've done wrong. And as human beings, nobody likes to be told what you've done wrong or what to do. So the best way that we can really communicate in those situations is to ask great questions, pause more, listen, really bring that empathy in. And what you're ultimately trying to do in the situation is to encourage the other person to tap into their emotional intelligence. And if you can get them to actually voice the problem or the concern or the challenge, then you've got ownership there, which is the first step, that self-awareness, and you can help them to move through it. But by all means, if you're in a tough conversation and that other person is not tapping into their emotional intelligence, then please be careful not to become a pushover. There is a fine line. We do need to step up at some point and actually guide them or go into that tell mode. But listening, pausing, empathy, and great questions, that is how we have really tough conversations.
Amy, well said by you. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program. That's all the time we've got for the moment. But again, thank you again for your time and insight.
It was my absolute pleasure, and I cannot wait to hear the increase on that score of 27.
Yeah, there we go. Great. Now I've got another thing to add to the list. No, I'm just kidding. But and of course, if you guys are interested in checking out Amy's book, Emotional Intelligence, to get an extensive understanding of this space, I highly recommend you give it a go. Greg, as always, very nice discussions from you. Great guests. Take us through some of your Ticker Ed top tips, just to cap us off.
Absolutely. Very quickly, listen more than you speak. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Utilise proven techniques to resolve challenging conversations. And as Amy said, educate yourself. You can become a more emotionally intelligent person.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I've been your host, Mike Loder, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.